This is the tale of the father's love. There was a man who had two sons, and they lived on a farm. The guy was quite wealthy, and they had, lots of land, and they raised lots of crops and had lots of livestock, and he even had many servants that worked on the farm. And the two boys worked on the farm, but the youngest son got to thinking, I can do better than this on my own. I just want to get out and be on my own. I don't want to have to answer to anybody. So he went to his dad and he said, Dad, just give me my inheritance and I'll just try and make it on my own. So his dad didn't think that was a good idea. But the youngest son kept going to his dad and begging him to give him his inheritance so that he could start working on his own. And so finally, the dad decided that he would give the youngest son his inheritance. Well, now, a lot of the inheritance was tied up in the land, and so he had to sell off part of the land and part of the livestock in order to be able to get together the amount that the youngest son would get. But when he finally got it all together, he gave the youngest son the money. Well, it wasn't long after that till the youngest son took everything that he had and he left. He went to the big city to try and make it on his own. Well, when he hit the big city, he had many, many friends. As you can imagine, he was partying and having a good time. He had all kinds of money. So, he had lots of friends. And so they would get together and they would party every night. And that lasted for quite a while. And then the boy finally got to looking and he started seeing that his money was starting to run out. And so he started slowing down on his partying, but his money just kept going and going, and he kept spending until he had none of his money left. And then he decided, well, I guess I better do something. I'm going to starve to death. But about that same time, there became a famine in the land, and there wasn't any work to be found. He looked everywhere, and he couldn't find anything to do. And he was getting really, really hungry because he couldn't find anything to eat. And so finally he found one guy that had some pigs. He had a hog farm, and so he joined himself up to that guy, and he started working for him. But the guy didn't pay very much. He didn't even pay him enough to buy food to keep him alive, to keep him fed. And he was still so hungry, but he was going and taking care of the hogs every day. And he was so hungry that he decided that he would try and eat the food that the hogs were eating. But that didn't help him none. He was just so hungry, and he just wasting away. He didn't have anything to do, couldn't find no other work, and he was just starving. And finally he came to his senses and he said, what am I doing here? He said, in my father's house, every servant has plenty to eat. And I'll just go to Dad and I'll say, look, Dad, I know I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. So all I want is just to be made one of your servants. And he thought that was a good plan. So he set out on the long journey home. He is a pretty pitiful looking sight. He is just skinny as a rail, and his clothes were shabby. He smelled like a pig pen. But he wanted to get home where he could get something to eat. So he kept pushing along on the road and headed towards the house. Well, back at the house, the father had been missing his son really bad, and he'd been looking for him. And he would look down the road for him almost every day. And then one day when the father looked down the road, he seen somebody coming. And he must have recognized the way the boy was walking, because he realized it was his son. And so he ran down the road to meet his son. And when he got to him, he grabbed him and hugged him. It didn't matter to him how dirty he was or how bad he smelled. He just hugged him, and the son, he was ready with his practice story that he was going to tell his dad. He said, look, Dad, he said, I know I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. I just want to be like one of your hired servants, just so that I'll have enough to eat. And the dad told the servants, he said, quick, go get a robe and put on him, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and kill the fatted calf, because we're going to have a feast, because my son which was lost has come home. Now the dad just loved his son, and so he the things that he gave him, the robe that he put on him, was letting him know that he was still a part of the family. And that the ring that he put on his finger was a signet ring that gave him the authority of the family. And the sandals that he put on the feet was the sandals that his son would wear, because only the slaves went barefooted and not the sons. So he wanted him to know that he was accepting him back as a son, not as a servant. And so they killed the fatted calf and they started having a feast. And they were so happy. Now, our Father in heaven loves us even more than that. So if you've never had a relationship with him, that's what he wants. He wants to have a relationship with you. And he loves you so much that it don't matter where you've been or what you've done. He's willing to accept you as one of his sons. All you have to do is turn to him. And if you already had a relationship with him and you have strayed from the way and you have left that first love and gone down your own path and tried to make it on your own, and you realize that what you've done is made a mess of things, then the Father is looking for you. He wants you to come back home. He wants you to come back into a fellowship with him, and he's waiting with open arms to welcome you back. So all you have to do is make that decision to turn around and come back to him. So if you need to get in touch with me and find out how to start a relationship with God, or if you need any other help, you can contact me at talesforlife@gmail.com. That's talesforlife@gmail.com.